You're live, Your Worship.
Oh, thank you very much, Sarah, and welcome everyone. I see I have all members of council present. That's great. Welcome council and staff and members of the public to our 2021 year. Can you imagine? We're at 2021. So we've had a busy year in 2020, that's for sure, and we're looking forward to getting through this whole pandemic thing, and perhaps we'll be able to actually have meetings together in person. But for now, we're going to continue in this format. So we will hope that we can continue to bring the business of the community forward in this way. All right, members of council, we've already had a brief in-camera session previously, so we're going to move on our agenda to item number 2, which is approval of the agenda. Recommendation be it resolved that council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the agenda dated January the 11th, 2021 as presented. I'm looking for a mover and seconder, please, on the motion. Mr. Broderick and Councillor Denis. Anything further? I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And the agenda is adopted. Thank you. Motion carries. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Is there any members with any disclosures at this time? All right, seeing none. If anything comes up, please bring it forward at that time. We'll deal with it appropriately. Members of council, we're going to move to public participation, which is item number 4. We did receive a letter from Mr. Bruce Parson in regards to internet activity or connectivity in the community of New Lowell. There was a recent announcement from SWIFT, which is the organization, which is the Southwestern Fiber Integration Network Team project that's put together through a group of counties. We at Simcoe County participate in that. The representative is our warden. Warden Cornell is our representative on the SWIFT board. I had a brief conversation, council, with Mr. Parsons today on the phone. I had a conversation with him, and I think he has a better understanding as that the municipality has no responsibility towards bringing internet to anybody. In fact, it's outside of our responsibility as a municipal government. But certainly, as councillors and mayor and deputy mayor, I'm sure we're all aware how important internet is in our community, and we continue to ask for assistance and ask for support from our federal and provincial partners, as well as our SWIFT representatives. But most importantly, we need to continue to contact and speak with members of the ISP community, because they're the ones that actually bring internet to the people's homes. So there are some contacts that have had over the last couple of years with various local internet service providers, and we continue to have those discussions with them, but it's entirely up to them. They're a private company and private operations, so it's very difficult for your local government to get involved with and how they deliver their services. But certainly we can lend our voice to it by asking for those services to be extended. So anyway, I wanted you to know I had a really good conversation with Mr. Parsons, and I look forward to those type of conversations anytime. As always, public participation is your opportunity as members of the public to contact us. There is a form online at clearview.ca to fill out, which creates an official public participation form, and we remind the public to please use that official form. That's how you best can participate in the council meeting by using the official document. So thank you very much for that. And I also want to mention too that our deputy clerk handles receiving these forms, and she does a great job making sure that they're available to all members of the council and on our agenda too. So thank you for that. All right, council, we'll move to item number 5, which is deputation and presentations. For today's meeting, there are none. And then item 6 is our public meeting. At 6:30, we do have a public meeting, which will be commenced at 6:30. But as we're at 5:38 right now, we'll keep moving along with our agenda. So, council, item number 7 is the approval of the minutes of our council meeting. So I'll read this and then I'll ask for a mover and seconder. Recommendation be it resolved that council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the minutes of the December 14, 2020 council meeting as presented. A mover and seconder, please. Councillor Leashman and Councillor Lambers. All right. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. The minutes are adopted. Thank you. Business arising from the minutes, if any? Any questions on the business from the minutes? Being none, I'll go to communications from the mayor. I have item 1 is our closed session report. We did have a closed session meeting just prior to the council meeting, the public council meeting starting. I have nothing to report from that council meeting or from that in-camera session, so I will report on that at a later time. And at this time, I'll go to item number 9.2, the Crime Stoppers request for proclamation. If members of council have had an opportunity to read it, it's actually quite a very lengthy proclamation, and so I have summed it down into a simple resolution, and I'll read it, and then I'll ask for a mover and seconder unless there's any questions on it. All right, I'll read it. It's be it resolved that the Township of Clearview does proclaim the month of January 2021 as Crime Stopper Month, and that the residents of Clearview consider the valuable work being done by Crime Stoppers of Simcoe, Dufferin, Muskoka in helping to keep our community safe. I ask for a mover and a seconder on that motion. Mr. Burton and Mr. Broderick. And is there any questions on the motion? Mr. McKechnie, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wondering if there would be any appetite amongst council to maybe if we request staff to determine the cost of a billboard in the town of Stayner for up to 1 year to advertise the Crime Stoppers, or remind people of Crime Stoppers. I think there's, just reading on social media, I think there's a bit of a crime problem maybe in Stayner with cars being broken into and things like that. And anyway, just find out what the cost of a billboard would be. And maybe we could join up with Crime Stoppers in having a billboard put up in Stayner for up to a year to bring it to the attention of the public that Crime Stoppers is still out there and such. So, just wondering, how do I go about doing that? Do I have to make a motion to that effect?
I would say you would. I don't think it would be specific to our motion just to create a proclamation at this time. But we can deal with that in just a moment if you'd like, Councillor McKechnie, as it's timely. All right. Is there any further questions on the proclamation? Councillor Lamers and then Councillor Patterson. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. If you drive around the country, a lot of the Crime Stopper signs are getting faded. A lot of them need to be updated and replaced. I don't know how we go about getting that done.
Now, some of them are on county posts, some of them are on municipal posts. I've seen them. I agree with you there, and some of the other ones too, which are the neighborhood watch signs, are looking pretty faded. Those ones, that's for sure. Good point. Again, I'm not sure how it relates to the actual proclamation that we're asking for at this time, but we can discuss that. Councillor Patterson, I see you're next. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, just so of course I support what the Crime Stoppers are doing. Now, as a community, as a community, we would be concerned also about crime that leads to the lack of safety for our citizens. And we've been talking a lot about traffic safety and that sort of thing. Is there any room in discussions with Crime Stoppers? I've never had an experience with them, to give them some of our concerns, highlight some of our concerns, that when they're doing their due diligence, that we have some themes that we would like to have them focus on. And
again, good discussion. I think that perhaps Councillor Patterson, I could compose a letter and invite them to come and make a presentation to the council about that, and I think that would be a good step for them. Keeping in mind that they are a volunteer board, they do have a couple of staff people that assist them. As that last research I did on the group, oftentimes a police officer becomes seconded to work for the Crime Stoppers organization right across the whole district, because if you look, it's obviously Dufferin, Simcoe, and Muskoka, so it's a pretty big district. So how about I do some investigating on your behalf, and we'll invite a delegation to appear in front of us. Again, at this time, I have a motion simply just to do a proclamation for January 2020 as Crime Stoppers. So, Councillor Patterson, you're comfortable with that? I'll report back to council.
I do like that idea, and then at that point we can highlight some of our concerns. it's in the purview of what our OPP does for us. That's what I'm
Sure.
thinking, our bylaws. But we are wrestling with public compliance and enforcement of existing laws. So I think it would be a good discussion. We'll do something for them and they can do something for us.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. All right. Anything further on the proclamation? All right. I've got a mover and seconder. I'll prepare to call the motion. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. So on your behalf, I will prepare a proper proclamation and affix my signature to it, and we'll present it to them. Further, I'll just go backwards here. Councillor Patterson, I will do a contact with them, and I'll have a conversation, see if we can invite them and then schedule them through the clerk's office for a meeting with council. And hopefully that will help address some of your concerns and other concerns for council as well. Councillor Lamers, the business about the signs, I think, is a good point. We need to perhaps work with our public works staff. If there are signs that are within our area that need to be updated and addressed, then our public works staff need to do it. I'm not sure if the county level has any concern or any ability to make any changes to some of those signs as well. So actually, I'll ask you, Councillor Lamers, or even the Deputy Mayor, is there any comment on what we could do there about the county signs? John?
Yeah, we can approach the county and see. I didn't know who owned those signs, if they were owned by the Crime Stoppers or if they were owned by the county.
Yeah.
We'd have to look at.
Yeah, I guess we have to investigate that. I wouldn't know, so I have to investigate that. And then back to Councillor McKechnie. Did you have an actual motion you want to bring, Councillor McKechnie, or are you comfortable we can have a discussion with them? And perhaps after we have them here, we can find out if that's what they want to do. Bring
Yeah, rather than make it a formal motion, let's just have a meeting with them, invite them to a meeting, and but maybe in our back pocket we can have an idea what the price of a billboard would be. And I can even do that myself. It's just a sake of a phone call, I guess. So anyway, so I don't want to make a formal motion on this. So I'm happy with it. If they come to a meeting and we discuss it, maybe we can push this forward a little bit and give them some more exposure. That's all. So I'm happy.
I concur. Excellent. All right. Well, we'll have an opportunity to discuss that with them when they come to see us, and I'll certainly share that in my communication with them. So thank you, Councillor. All right, Council. There's nothing further then on communications from the Mayor, I just want to take a moment actually to thank and recognize our volunteers that continue to serve our community at this time. And it's always great to know that we have great volunteers in our community. So, recommendation be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Green River hereby receive the communications from the Mayor for information. Can I have a mover and seconder? Let's see, Deputy Mayor Burton and Councillor Leashman. Thank you. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. All right, county reports. I can go to our Councillor Burton and myself. Councillor Burton, have you got anything you'd like to add to the county report at this time?
No, we haven't had any meetings since our last, so it's nothing new, but tomorrow is our first meeting of the new year, so we'll see what happens.
That's right. The one thing I would add is that we have a committee of the whole and then a county council meeting. And then following that, there's also a little bit of a workshop on affordable housing that's available to members of council to sit in on as well tomorrow. So that's something that's on the agenda for tomorrow from the county. So I look forward to that. All right. Thank you, everyone. Item 11, council, is our ward reports. So we can go around the table and start with Councillor Patterson. You're the first person on my screen on my display. So you're up first. Go ahead, Tom.
All right. Nothing official to report on, but just to sort of taking the temperature of the community, suggestion I put forward to council and staff. We're all dealing with COVID in our own ways, and there's certainly a lot of information coming from the county and from public media. I wonder if it's not a good idea now, as we're turning the year and we're really looking at a significant event, vaccinations, as it starts to ramp up, just as one item. If we could give a state, our township, could we give a state of where we are with COVID? I think people have a general sense, but there aren't enough specifics, not just limited to township, of course, the county and the region. just to give we've been at it for almost a year. How are we doing? How are people feeling? And I'm wondering if that we publicize it and invite people to come in and view the update. I don't know if we need to broadcast it as far as send in your suggestions so we can address your concerns, but it doesn't look like it's going to level off for a while. Vaccinations are coming, so people are generally interested. They ask me all the time, like, what's happening? They see rinks closing and facilities closing, but is there anything else besides their state of health, including their state of health, that we can talk to? So I put that suggestion forward.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'm prepared to make a motion if we need to make a motion, if council is generally agreeable, but it's mostly a suggestion to staff who would have to do the work, and in council to say, yes, they think that might be a good idea.
All right. If I can, I would encourage yourself and any members of council, as well as members of the public, to please check clearview.ca. Right at the top of clearview.ca on the website is our COVID update. And there is a pinned message there that includes all of the current status of COVID activity and COVID changes or COVID restrictions or COVID facility openings, closures, times, changes. All those things are available on our list that is operated and managed by our communications officer. And she's doing a great job keeping it up to date. Further to that, the emergency operations team, which is currently led by our fire chief, Rory Payment, as the community emergency management coordinator. Rory conducts these meetings, and we have the members of the senior management team, as well as myself and other members of our staff that are part of the emergency operations team to get together. We have been getting together once every 2 weeks, basically since about October. Prior to that, we were every week, sometimes twice a week, getting together as we were dealing with it, immediately from March. But I would suggest that we'll probably be meeting more often, maybe perhaps even back to once a week, given the rapid changes that come from the province as far as restrictions and lockdowns and so on. So if the public are interested or looking for any information, I would encourage them to go to clearview.ca, and right on there's a link that does have all of the information that stays up to date. I checked it just today, actually, to have a quick look at it myself to make sure that it was up to date. The most recent addition to it was that the administration center for Clearview is locked, but is still operational, meaning that the door is not open here. You need to make an appointment to phone ahead or email ahead or contact the person that you wish to communicate with inside. That way it limits the number of people that are actually in the building as well as who have access to it, which protects both the public and our staff. So that's the most recent change that's on our page. So, Councillor, I think that hopefully that helps answer your question, and it's a good suggestion because, as you know, the rules change. It seems like every 20 minutes coming out of the province, and so we have to pay attention to it and do everything we can to try to adhere to that. So, thank you, Tom. I'd like to go to our next councillor. Is that right? Councillor Lamers, you're next. Councillor Lamers, happy birthday. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. I haven't got too much tonight, just taking a lot of flack from this rink we've been working so hard to get up and get going, and now we're getting the cold weather and some nice ice, and we haven't got the manpower to control the public, so we're now closed. Everybody wants to get outside and do something, and they're a little upset that they can't use the public rinks. So, but it's nothing we can do within this COVID.
Yeah, Councillor, I concur with you completely. It is really disappointing. It's very disappointing, and it's very disappointing when I look at our neighbors in Springwater Township, where an outdoor ice surface had been put together. Volunteers had built it, and it got swamped with visitors from a neighboring community bringing their minor hockey team over to have a skate, and 50, 60, 70 people that was reported to be all around the ice. It's just unacceptable. It's a gathering place, and that's very dangerous when it comes to this COVID situation, that people gathering. And so it's certainly not appropriate. The guidelines are pretty clear. You have to be 6 feet apart or greater while you're on the ice from any other person anyway. So any of the public ice surfaces that have staff that man them and operate them, those ice surfaces have to be supervised and are supervised. And so our neighbors in Wasaga Beach and in Collingwood have ice surfaces that are supervised. In our community, we don't have the staff or the resources or the infrastructure in place to actually supervise and look after those ice surfaces. So it's very disappointing, isn't it, that the volunteers work like crazy to help build that facility, and then unfortunately with COVID, they need to be suspended at this time. And so I feel terrible about it. Nothing much we can do about it at this time. Let's just hope that we get a longer winter and we can come out of this and we can get some ice back on those ice surfaces. Thank you very much, Councillor. I'm going to go to Councillor Broderick next, John Broderick, and then Walker. Go ahead, Mr. Broderick.
Thank you, Your Worship. December the 15th, 2020, attended the library board meeting. December the 18th, 2020, attended our CAO Steve Sage's Zoom retirement party. On January the 9th, along with councillors McKechnie and Lamers, we did a site tour of DMS Metals, formerly Midwest Metals. And upcoming, of course, we have the budget session on the 13th, the council, our next council meeting on the 18th. And on the 20th, the Clearview Chamber of Commerce next meeting. And January 26th or 25th and 26th is the Roma Zoom conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Councillor Walker is next, then Councillor Deneen. Go ahead, Councillor Walker. Robert, how you doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I really have nothing. We've had no youth committee meetings. So we're just same as Councillor Lamers, the outdoor rink. A few questions about that, a few questions about COVID updates, but you point people in the right direction and give them the areas where they can go and try and find information, and that's all we can do. And try and help them along as best we can. So nothing else, Your Worship.
All right, thank you very much, and I hope your family remains safe. Councillor Deneen, you're next, and then Councillor McKechnie. Go ahead, Phyllis. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks. Not much here either, but I just want to thank everyone for doing their part over the holiday season, and also with the challenges of childcare and internet for homeschooling. I've had to do some grandma homeschool, and it's not exactly ideal at all. I've had at least 5 of my friends that have already had their inoculations. So take heart, people, it's coming, and we'll get through this. Thanks.
Thank you, Phyllis. Good luck with that homeschooling. I'm sure there's a lot of parents are learning a whole lot about homeschooling and keeping the attention of their kids on their projects. So it's
two at once. It's a challenge. I've got grade 2 and I've got grade 5 going at the same time, and yeah, it's interesting.
You might have to enlist Grandpa Kevin to help them out.
No.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Phyllis. Councillor McKechnie, you're next, and then Councillor Leishman. Councillor McKechnie, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yes, Phyllis, I had one here. I was homeschooling one today, grade 1. Everyone will be happy to know that the teacher said that I got most of the questions answered correctly. She gave me a gold star, and I thought it was just like a council meeting, the 20 grade 1 students, and I thought this is just like council. Anyway, On January the 9th, last Saturday, I did the site visit to Midwest Metals to prepare for the upcoming public meeting, and that was very informative. Sometimes, all it takes is a visit to some of these places to sort of get an idea of what exactly is being proposed. We read the agenda, and I find sometimes I get a little bit confused, and especially when it comes to planning and zoning and such. So it was good to go and actually just see the site and have a much better understanding of it now. And the two Johns went with me, John Broderick and John Lamers. And by the way, happy birthday, Councillor Lamers. And tomorrow I will be attending the Creemore BIA meeting, and that should be interesting with all the lockdown and everything. It seems like the businesses are just being hammered. So that'll be an interesting meeting tomorrow. So thank you very much. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Councillor McKechnie. Please send our best regards to the volunteers at the BIA. I'm sure it's a very difficult time right now, so we're thinking of them. Councillor Leashman is next, and then the Deputy Mayor. Go ahead, Councillor Leashman.
Thank you. I haven't really got much to say, except that I did have a meeting with Sunnydale Hall. I read them the report that the Accessibility Committee gave us at the last council meeting, and I left them with just the question of, do you want to proceed? And I'm hoping that I'll get an answer from them before we have our meeting about the halls, and we'll go from there. Because otherwise there's no point in talking about it unless they really want to go ahead. I'm thinking that, we haven't had many rentals and there isn't a lot of money coming in right now. So it's something they really have to think hard and strong about. I'm sure we still want to do it eventually, but I'm not sure when anyway. So for now, that's where I left them. I've talked to a few of my constituents over the holidays, and they had a very quiet, but a very nice Christmas. So that's a good thing. And we're all hoping for a better new year. Yes, and I am too. I'm here with my 3 grandchildren who are in high school homeschooling. And that's a really different thing. They do it all themselves. They lock themselves in their bedroom. I don't see them. And then they come out for lunch and then they go back. So I don't do anything. And I don't envy the 2 of you for doing homeschooling, because I wouldn't want to do that. It looks frustrating anyway. But thank you and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Connie. Glad to see you're doing well. Deputy Mayor Burton, you're next. And then I just had one other quick thing I'd add, and then we'll go right to your report. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, not much. Sorry, not much to report on, other than in the last week of December, we did have a village on the Village on the Green, Station on the Green meeting, and just did some just general business stuff that we had to deal with. We did that, but coming up is, like I said, County Council tomorrow, Committee of Adjustment on Wednesday. Thursday is accessibility with the county. I'm on that thing, and then a week Thursday is NEC. So it's New Year, and it's back into the regular routine of meetings. That's about it.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and I hope that you and Lorraine had a good holiday season. And I understand it was quiet at the Burton House this year.
It was very quiet at the Burton House this year. It was we dropped the presents off to our grandkids, stuck them at the door, rang the doorbell, stood out in the driveway about 20 feet away, blew kisses at them, said Merry Christmas, and then we came home. So it was a pretty quiet Christmas. And the only thing I can say was I did cook a turkey, and the smallest turkey I could find was 10 pounds. So for 2 people to eat 10 pounds of turkey, we were getting pretty tired by about day 6. We had enough turkey to last us.
Turkey sandwiches over and over again.
I know. Anyway,
thank you very much. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to add one item, and then I'll come back to you, Deputy Mayor, for your item number 11.2. Clearview Township is still accepting applications for the volunteer position of our Economic Development Action Committee, which is scheduled to get started as soon as we can get a a group of volunteers that are applying. I have not had a conversation with the clerk as to the number of applications that we received, but certainly we encourage people to go onto our website and find the application form if they're interested in supporting economic development in our community and volunteering on our board. I certainly look forward to it. As we come out of the pandemic, it would be my hope that the community, Clearview Township, will be there to support those small businesses and try to create some, whether they be small marketing programs or whether they create initiatives that we can do to support those businesses as they relaunch themselves after this pandemic. So I just wanted to remind the public that that application process is still underway, and then council will be meeting in an in-camera session at some time to review those applications, and then we will name the committee, and the committee can then get started. That's what we're looking forward to. As far as Christmas, Tracy and I stayed at home. We were going to do a turkey, Deputy Mayor, but we decided to do a duck. So for the first time in a long time, Tracy and I had duck for Christmas, and it was really nice. It was just the two of us. So we certainly miss our kids, but they're growing up and looking after themselves. So we've talked to them on the phone and talked to them by internet and through Zoom. And so it's a different time, that's for sure. It was a very quiet few weeks, that's for sure. But I did get into watching The Crown on Netflix. So that's my latest Netflix thing. There you go. All right, council, we're now going to go to item number 11.2, which is the Deputy Mayor. Burton has a report. Deputy Mayor, do you want to just start speaking about it, or do you want me to go ahead and read this resolution, get it fully on the floor? It's a pretty good resolution. What are you thinking there, Deputy Mayor?
I would suggest read the resolution. I'll move it and then get a secondary if there's any discussion.
All right, I will read it and then I'll look for the secondary in the motion here, and then we'll have a good discussion. Recommendation, be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, receive the amendment to shipping containers bylaw report for information. Item number 2, direct staff to prepare a report on procedures and taxing implications on allowing shipping containers as a permissive use for storage on lands zoned industrial, commercial, and agricultural. Item 3, report to include costs of building permits for a 20-foot by 8-foot container. And item 4, maximum number of containers per location. Item 5, possible annual permit fee. And item 6, minimum distance setbacks from adjoining properties. So that's moved by the Deputy Mayor. I'll look for a seconder in the motion. Councillor Leashman is the seconder on the motion. All right, Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak to your report and in the comments of this? And then I would ask if we go to questions as members from of our staff as well. So go ahead, Barry.
Sure. So yes, I think the motion is self-explanatory. We have a bylaw that doesn't permit them, but in today's world, it's become a reality that many of our businesses and agricultural facilities are using them for storage, and it's throughout the province now. They're building homes out of these. They're using them for storage, using them for garages, and they're using them as I had a conversation with the chief building inspector that they're being used as components in some of the building applications and stuff like that. So I think it's time that we looked at the bylaw and made a way to make them permissive to allow them. But I'm only suggesting they be allowed on commercial, industrial, and agricultural properties, and that they, is an opportunity for us to collect some tax dollars. Not that we want to tax everybody to death, but if they don't want to build, and I understand the cost of building is quite expensive, and they want to use these as a structure for storage or garage or whatever, then they should be taxable at a land-based price or land-based rate, I should say. So, and I would just finish off by saying that we always have concerns about derelict-looking buildings, and we certainly don't want to see derelict-looking containers, but they would all still fall under the Property Standards Act, which we could deal with. If somebody had a rusting old bucket-looking thing out there, we could certainly instill the property standards acts to have them painted. And I've seen quite a few people have painted them and got them looking quite neat and quite tidy. So that's about it.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Members of council, I'm looking if you have any questions. In the meantime, I'm going to advise our clerk, Mara Burton, and even Scott, if they want to join us, we may have conversations for you. Certainly, I'm going to have questions for you. But I'm looking for members from council. If they have any questions, I'll give you the opportunity first. Go ahead. Members of council, let's see. Councillor Leashman, Councillor Patterson, anybody else? All right, we'll start there. Connie, you can go ahead first.
Thank you. I read the report. I rather like it. As long as it doesn't go into residential, I'm okay with it. And to Deputy Mayor Burton's point about the houses, I picked up a magazine not long ago called Dockside, and it's out of Simcoe County. And there's a company, I don't know if you can see that or not, but that is a house made out of shipping containers.
Yep.
And it's a company out of Stroud, actually. So I'm thinking that maybe Innisfil knows a bit more about it than we do, but it's something that we're probably going to have to deal with somewhere along the line. And maybe we should know what's coming and expect, at least not be surprised. So that's all I have to say, but thank you.
All right, no questions. That was a good comment. Thank you. Councillor Patterson, you're next. Looking for anybody else with comments or questions? All right, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. Yeah, we've had considerable discussion on this when we did the housekeeping, but we've never really, I don't think, done a survey of what the condition of that market is right now. In general, if this is really a response to public complaints or non-compliance, then I think there's amount of. I think staff should come back if there's any report with the state of play. What do we have out there that would make us reconsider what we did a few months ago? If this is being driven by public demand in service, which is usually that's a public domain that's served by a private domain that's served by private entrepreneurs, then I would like to get comments from the market, those people that are operating them now, those people that facilitate development of those, so that we have enough information here to make a decision, because it was clear from the last discussion that for a number of reasons we thought the amendments, there was no amendment needed to the bylaw, which is still the current bylaw. Remember, this wasn't a decision we made to not permit them. They haven't been permitted for some time. My issue is one of enforcement and compliance right now. If you do a survey of the available units, the storage units that are out there, and by my count, I can identify 7 businesses that you can get either on the internet, or if you comb through our zoning bylaw, you can pick up the exceptions, mostly in the restricted industrial category. They all seem to be placed in, most of them seem to be placed in the proper zone. So that kind of would imply to me that at some point in time we made a decision to allow these. So I'd also like to understand from staff how we got to this situation in the first place, which again leads me back to compliance and enforcement.
So Councillor Patterson, I think we need to hold it right there. You got about 16 different questions in there. So let's go with the clerk first, if I can. Madam Clerk, can you give us a comment about the enforcement activities through the bylaw department? What have they, what has our staff been doing about enforcement about this particular bylaw?
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. So last year we moved to a proactive approach for some bylaws. That wasn't the case in years past. So we only operated based on a complaint system. So there may be a lot of storage containers out there, but because we only dealt with complaint only and we enforced based on that strategy, they were left unenforced unless we received a direct complaint about them. We have moved to a proactive enforcement in the past year and have made considerable headway when it comes to property standards. But storage containers are not included in the property standards bylaw as of yet. What it is enforced under is the zoning bylaw. So that's where we would have enforced the storage containers, and we have done several enforcements, but probably not at the scale that council's talking about tonight.
Okay, thank you. And perhaps over to Mayor Burton. Ms. Burton, you were certainly involved in the authoring of this bylaw. And so could you outline for us any of the exceptions that were offered in that bylaw? I believe there was some for industrial, if I'm not mistaken. Can you outline some of that?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd be happy to do that. So the original zoning bylaw, just to give a bit of background, was passed in 2006. And a lot of the bylaws before that, you weren't allowed to have truck bodies and things like that that weren't, you know, an actual licensed vehicle on your property. Right. I don't believe that shipping containers really became a substantial part of the landscape, for lack of a better word, since probably the passing of the bylaw. So maybe the last 10 years or so, because it has been about almost 15 years since we passed the bylaw. So the zoning bylaw does not allow them. I certainly understand and recognize that they're out there in some cases, but I don't believe that they are legally there. In regard to the changes that were made in our housekeeping update, what we did was we allowed moving containers to be used for a moving company that's legitimately moving somebody, so that you could bring a moving container, and they're a little bit different, but a moving container could come to somebody's property. They can fill up the container if they're moving and maybe they're going overseas or cross country or whatever, and then the moving company would come pick it up, put it on the truck, and off they go, or on the ship, and off they go. So that's under that application, they can be used, or at least a moving container can be used. But otherwise, shipping containers have not been permitted in the township.
Right. So my question was more about what the deputy mayor's motion is in regards to, and I think Councillor Patterson mentioned it too, about has there been any concern about industrial uses of industrial lands or industrial zone properties, or even some commercial properties with these shipping containers? Have you had any of those concerns brought to your attention?
We haven't had a lot. It might be better for bylaw to comment on.
I'm speaking back and forth between yourself and bylaw. Yeah.
Sure. I don't think we've had, I don't think the planning department's necessarily had a lot of complaints about shipping containers. However, some of the concerns that we would have that we can investigate if council decides to direct staff to do that is that when they're brought in, they aren't brought in under site plan control. So they could be in a loading space, they could be taking up parking, they're adding area that is impermeable, so it could affect stormwater. Certainly the look of them, and I don't believe that they're taxed either. So when, like if I were to take, say, a storage business as an example, a mini storage company, in the past, they've been building actual bricks and mortar, and that's done through site plan, so we can ensure that we are meeting the fire routes, so that if something happens, the fire department can get in there and get around the buildings and make sure that they can put the fire out to protect people's property. And also they are being taxed, and they're also paying development charges. Shipping containers don't have any of that at this time. They come in, they're in illegally, they could be putting them in a fire route, they're not getting taxed, and they're not paying development charges. So that certainly understand why businesses want to use them, because they're very, very affordable, And but I guess one of the concerns that, we would have is that you've got other people who are doing it by the book properly, and they're paying their development charges and paying their building permit fees and making sure they do their site plans. And then you've got somebody else who just isn't doing any of that. So it's almost an unfair business practice that somebody else could run a similar business and not have to do any of the things that the person who did it this way would have to do. And I think that's what the deputy mayor is trying to consider when he says, can we look at taxation? Is there a cost, and is there a way to offset those sort of practices to even the playing field between our businesses that are doing it by, the proper way, and businesses who are bringing them in illegally?
Okay. Thank you, Mara. Councillor Patterson, I'm hoping that may have helped with a couple of your questions. You had a few in there. Is there anything further you want to add to that, or any further questions?
I'll just add, I'll add just my comments to the taxation. If they are treated as a building, which they should be, they pay DCs, they get building permits. We do a site plan, they pay all the planning fees, and we tax them as property. So if we're talking about an impost tax, something we're going to impose a special tax, I don't want to get into that kind of sort of municipal servicing revenue generation. It's either a piece of property and it's required to follow our building, our planning, and our bylaws in general. And so if we're talking about, so I see this as really much more comprehensive than, first of all, we don't have the shipping containers bylaw. We have a zoning bylaw.
Right.
Okay. So now we're talking about the zoning bylaw. Okay. And then we should be having consideration for the impact, just as Mara mentioned, that they're a proper building. Doesn't matter what material we're using, as long as they're putting a proper building on a properly prepared site and following and conforming with our permitting fees and our taxation laws, etc. So it's a lot more comprehensive than just saying maybe we can work on a fix for this special case, shipping containers. So I would, and in general, I'm not in favor of using this as a substitute for a well-built building for a number of reasons. However, if we are going to go with this, I don't see it in any other place than in the use that we have today for the public storage market, and that's industrial, not commercial, not highway commercial, not rural, not ag.
Okay.
So those are my comments for
Thank
now.
you very much, Councillor. Now, Deputy Mayor Burton, I did see your card put up there, but I was hoping that other members of council may want to jump in. I'm going to acknowledge you if you had another question or comment you want to throw in.
No, I look forward to staff's report. I mean, the motivation for this was I was contacted by several businesses about, and what brought a lot of it to a head was when we posted the notice in the papers that they were not legally allowed, and a lot of people were not aware of that. And so at the time, that was almost a year ago, that people were calling me and saying, hey, we didn't know this and we need these and blah, 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 blah. And it was that time, it was almost a year ago, Mayor and the director of community service, started conversations, and we actually started doing researching and doing some calculating. So this report has probably been, I think Mayor would agree, about a year in the making. Would you say about that, Mayor? It's about a year in the making.
Perhaps. Yeah.
It's not something new. I just look forward to our staff's report and see how we move forward from there.
All right. Well, before we get to that point, is there any other members of council have any questions? I see McKechnie. Looking for anybody else? Did I see one of the Johns have their card up? I can't remember. I'm sure. Okay. Tell you what, we're going to go with McKechnie, and then maybe other members can think about their questions too. Okay, I see you now, John. Thank you. Councillor McKechnie, you're up next, then Mr. Lamers.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. But just wondering the Director of Planning. So the concerns that the mayor raised there, and I have to admit, I hadn't thought about them, you know, like for instance, the fire access, you know, the stormwater access, things like that. Not stormwater, but rain and such runoff and everything. So the concerns that she raised, will those be captured under item number 2, where it says procedures? Direct staff to prepare a report on procedures. So will that capture Mara's concerns when she does the report? So I don't know who should answer that, whether it's the Director of Planning or the Deputy Mayor.
If I may, your worship, I think that would fall under minimum distance setbacks and all those regulations like site plans. Minimum distance setbacks falls under site plans. So I would think that would all be under that. And that's the whole purpose. That's the whole purpose of getting staff to do a report, so that things like that can't happen. So they're not blocking, you know, fire routes. So they're not blocking drainage things. That's the whole purpose of getting staff to do a comprehensive report.
All right. Councilor McKechnie, is that comfortable? Yeah.
Well, as long as it's clear. I mean, you know, like I have no problem with supporting this recommendation, but it just as long as it's clear what we're expecting of the Director of Planning, that's all. Because there are some things there that I had not considered. You know, for instance, the blocking the fire route and such, and a few of the other concerns that she raised. I just want to make sure that the report that she does gets you know, captures those concerns. That's all. So.
All right. I recognize you, Mara. You can go ahead and answer that question. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Measures. I think that is the point, is that if council would like to look into this, so there's some merit in staff looking into allowing these in certain circumstances, then we would probably come back with, and it will cross more than just my department, it will involve the clerk's department as well, because if there is I mean, it's one thing we can say, okay, well, it has to be subject to site plan control. And we can talk about all those things, and we can talk about how it would conform to a building. If there's a way to do that, or whether it simply isn't, it's outside of the OBC and these are just sat on the property, because that's how it would be at this time. The other thing to consider then is we would talk with the assessment office to determine, are they assessed? I suspect they're not. And so how do you balance that? We can't, under the planning sort of area, charge for them to offset that. I'm not sure how we would do it in development charges, whether or not that's something that we could amend our development charge bylaw to cover or not, that I'm honestly not sure. And if we were looking at obtaining assessment for them, if that was something that council was interested in, I'm not sure how we would do that if the tax department does, you know, if they're not taxed. Would that be something that we would have a fee for? And if that were the case, how do we administer that fee? Is it a one-time fee? Is it a yearly fee? And, you know, are we looking at, these are all parts of questions that we would have as staff to look at, to bring back to you. You know, is it a maximum of one? And is there a maximum size, so that if it's only one, well, maybe some of these other issues aren't so bad, but as soon as they do more than one, then they've got to jump into a full building, you know, like an addition or something like that. That I'm not sure. These are all parts of the questions that we would have to try to, you know, basically even things out. So I think I have an idea of what council wants, but to be, you know, us to look at, to report back, but it would be a phased thing where we would report to you all of the items that we would need to consider. And then we would still have the question of actually a public process to see whether or not the public supported this, because we would have to change the zoning bylaw and maybe implement some other procedures or policies or bylaws at the municipality.
Okay. So just to shorten up your answer, this obviously would be a public process because it would be a zoning bylaw amendment. And so that opens up the question, not just simply because it's not just a bylaw about having shipping containers, it's actually a zoning bylaw. So it would create several steps here to make it be part of our comprehensive zoning bylaw. which falls underneath the category that I like to tease Mara about, and that is our housekeeping bylaw. We need to keep bringing up those items of housekeeping sooner than later. So thank you, Mara, for that. Councillor McKechnie, thank you for that question. I'm going to go to Councillor Lamers next, and I'm looking for others. Anybody else with a card? Okay. Oh, back to Tom. Okay. So Councillor Lamers, you're up.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, the Deputy Mayor and Mayor pretty well answered my questions. As long as we have them kept within the housekeeping bylaws and kept up in good shape, I'm all for this. Like, there's a lot of them in our township that are used, and the majority of them are keeping them in good shape, and they're all accessible pretty easy.
Thank you very much for that comment. Well, if this bylaw or this motion passes, we'll get a report and we'll be able to have a discussion about that and look for input from the public. Councillor Patterson, you're next, but I do have some questions too. So I'm going to go back to you one more time. Tom, go ahead.
Okay, the other thing too is not to go into this with the assumption that all shipping containers are the same. They're repurposed pieces of equipment. And so I would hope that that we get some kind of assessment. I have gotten complaints about the use of them from people who have gone and placed their stuff in them and then had them removed because of whether it was a smell or something. I'm not saying they're all like that. A lot of them look like they're in good shape on the outside, but this adds another. Not just a step, but another function for our building inspectors as well, in terms of, and I don't know if we've, I'm sure we can develop the expertise, but I don't know if we've had a lot of experience actually inspecting for use this, and we may need to get some expertise in this. So I would ask that any report include how a municipality would certify these units safe for public use. And the last thing I do, and that would say is, I'm a little concerned with all the other things that we need to do, the impact this will have on our staff. And I personally, as a councillor, do not think this is the highest priority thing we should be working on. While I'm interested in hearing some of the answers to this, it's not something that I think I'd be prepared to support as a direction to staff right now. I think the focus should be on other things, including the compliance to our existing bylaw, and clear that up before we get into to actually changing our minds on the bylaw while we're still also enforcing non-compliance. Gets a bit messy. Sounds like some people might get a free pass. And those are my comments.
All right, thank you very much for that. If I may, Council, I have a couple questions. And I did ask for the clerk and for Mara, and I also asked for Scott, our chief building official. I believe he's on board. Is that correct? Is Mr. McLeod available? There he is. Hello, Scott. If I may, I'd like to go directly to Scott for a couple of questions about buildings and building code. And Councillor Leashman brought up a nice article about them being used in housing construction. Do you have any experience, Councillor building official McLeod, in regards to these structures being used in buildings where there's habitats, actually, people living in them? You got any experience in that, Scott?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, we certainly have had requests, quite a few requests, because it is quite popular in terms of the whole concept or the idea of using storage containers as in housing construction. What I would say is shipping containers are actually not a building under the building code, so they are not regulated by the building code. So however, they can be used in buildings or as a building component or a building element. And so when you speak of the residential use in terms of the shipping container housing, some of those are manufactured and developed just sort of similar to manufactured homes, which meet a very strict Canadian CSA standard. And some are site assembled. And so the storage container is used as a building component. typically just as a structural component, and then you still have all the other elements of the building around that, the foundation and everything else. So, you know, they can be used as a building component, but they do not meet the definition of a building under the building code. So the storage units that you see on properties are not regulated under the building code.
Right, so that helps me answer one of the questions that I'm sure Mara or our clerk will be looking into if this report is determined that we need it. And that item is the taxation on said structure, because if the structure is not a building underneath the building code, I guess it could be argued that it's not taxable. So if it's not a building, how do you tax it? I don't understand how we would be able to work that out. So that's a question I'm thinking that the clerk and or the treasurer may have to look at. Scott, I have one other question for you, and that is that are you seeing any concerns with these buildings or these temporary uses? When you're a building inspector, do you have any concern about them having any structures underneath them? Like, they don't generally require anything. You can set them right on the mud or on the asphalt or wherever. They can be dropped pretty well anywhere, but there wouldn't be anything in the code in regards to the overall safety of them to make sure that they don't get moved around by the wind or don't cause a hazard to the public or anything like that, about them being placed in a hazardous area? Scott?
So again, Your Worship, they are not regulated by the building code, so the building department is not involved with the storage units. We don't have the authority unless they're used as a component of a building. And so if they were a component of a building, then, you know, they would require a foundation. They would require to have everything that any other building would require under the building code. So as a freestanding storage container, shipping container on a property, it is not regulated by the Ontario Building Code.
All right, pretty well clarifies what I was looking for. So, Madam Clerk, if this motion moves ahead, I can see that it may impact several departments across our township. Obviously, Mara and her team would be perhaps leading this, but would you see that other departments would be able to provide the input to assist in preparing this, Madam Clerk?
So certainly the clerk's office could assist the director of community services, and bylaw enforcement would no doubt want to have an active say in it as well too. You know, if council wants to pursue this, we would need to come back to council and try to reprioritize enforcement strategy, because we do have limited resources in the bylaw department to actively enforce. So we would want to make sure that we defined what expectations the community had through council. Also, our director of finance would most likely be involved in this too, as we would be applying some form of user fee if we're not able to tax them through NPAC and development charges, that sort of thing. So there's quite a bit of hands in the mix for this report. So it will take a little bit of time to formulate, but I'm sure that staff will do a great job, and we'll come back to you with some clear decisions to be made.
Okay. And so, frankly, to go back to Councillor Patterson's comment about the availability of our staff and time commitment to do this type of work in the absence of a CAO, can I ask you, Madam Clerk, do you feel that this could be done in a timely manner, or is this something that we would be looking at in a 3-month window, or what's the timeline you would see or you would hope to see that this could be brought back to council for discussion?
I think realistically speaking, council, with everything that we have on our plates right now, a report wouldn't come back to council before March. You know, we only have a couple meetings in between that time frame, and you know, COVID-19 has presented so many challenges, and with that comes additional ones, especially for the senior managers. So realistically, I think you would be looking at a spring report, most likely March.
All right. So I did see Councillor Patterson's card one more time, but I'm looking. Is anybody else? Nothing further, Tom? Are you comfortable with it?
Well, just a comment to Scott, and so that in researching this, because taxation was an issue for me, I have found this statement, if I could read it, several times. I'm sure Scott's familiar with it, so maybe you can clarify this information. When I search for whether or not a shipping container is a building, this is a statement I get, and it usually comes under the several of our communities in the area. I've seen the town of Blue Mountain, I've seen Hamilton, I've seen others. When a shipping container is no longer used for its original purpose, i.e. shipping or storage of freight, and is permanently placed on private property for use as storage, it is then considered to be a building as defined in the Ontario Building Code Act.
Oh, good point, Councillor. Scott, would you have a reaction to that?
Sure. Through your worship, to Councillor Patterson, I'd certainly be interested in seeing that. That's not coming from the building code. That's coming from a statement that other municipalities are making. So I'd certainly be interested in it, but certainly all the research and all the information that I have would indicate that a shipping container is not a building as defined under the building code. Again, until someone chooses to change that structure into something else. And again, typically it's used as a building component.
Okay, it's a good clarification.
Thank you.
For your own information, put in, is a shipping container a building? and you'll get what I just read.
Thank you, Tom. I'd like to go to Mara. She's been indicated she wants to speak. Go ahead. Oh, you're muted there, Mara. Oh, first time I said that in 2021. You're muted.
Thank you, Worship. It may be that those municipalities in their zoning bylaws have determined that they want to call it a building in the zoning bylaw, not necessarily in the building. So for the purposes of the zoning bylaw, they may consider it a building for things like lot coverage and setbacks and things like that. Maybe that's how they're working it. I don't know. But anyway, that's something to be looked into. But from a zoning point of view, that might be something you could do, but it wouldn't affect the building code, of course.
All right, thank you very much, Mara. Well, I'd like to button this up if I could, Council. My comment will be simply that I generally support the motion that the Deputy Mayor has brought forward. It has a whole lot of asks in it, but I think the key part about it is that we would direct staff to prepare a report. So that report will be comprehensive with a lot of different points in it. I think under good advice from the clerk, that we would not expect it to come at our next meeting, but it would come sometime this spring. We would get a report from our staff on an update on this situation. And I think the other aspect that I'd like to support in the Deputy Mayor's motion is the fact that enforcement still remains the best tool when it's regards to these things. So I'd like to get a part of that report would include some type of comment about what type of enforcement could be done as part of a zoning bylaw enforcement, or whether it's a, as the Deputy Mayor pointed out, whether it's part of the, you know, the derelict building discussions that we've had around here before. So anyway, if there's nothing further, I'm prepared to call the motion if council has nothing further. Pam, did you have something? No, you've disappeared. Anybody else? All right, we've got a mover and seconder. I'm not going to reread the motion because we've had a good discussion. Thank you for our staff for participating in this discussion. Members of council, are you prepared? I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And are those opposed? And that motion will carry. So you've got your direction, council, or staff from council. So we hope to see a report on this. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All right, members of council, it is now 6:42 according to my clock on my computer. And so I will move us back on our agenda to item number 6, which is our public meeting. And at that point, I will turn the chair over to our Deputy Mayor, which is our procedure for public meetings. So, Mr. Deputy Mayor, you have the chair.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I will read these comments from as being chair. That's we do at the beginning of every public meeting. We will now initiate the public meeting portion of tonight's agenda. We thank everyone who provided written comments ahead of tonight's public meeting. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Township of Clearview on an application being discussed this evening, please contact the planning person in charge of the file. The information will be provided in the presentation. As identified in the notice of public meeting, please be advised that your written comments or request to be notified will form part of the public record. Your communication and any personal information therein will be made available to the public unless you expressly request it removable. If a person or public body does not make written submission to the township with respect to the proposed application before a decision is made or a bylaw is passed, they are not entitled to appeal the decision to the local appeal tribunal and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The following public meeting will involve a brief presentation by our planning staff, including a brief explanation of the written comments received, an opportunity for the applicant or their agent to present their application and respond to the written comments, and the opportunity for questions by council. We will now proceed with tonight's public meeting. And I believe it's Rosalind who is looking after this file for us. So Rosalind, please go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And thank you, Mayor and Council. Just give me a second and I'll share my screen with you that has the presentation. Can everyone see that? The public meeting screen? Okay, great, thanks. So tonight we're here for a public meeting on zoning bylaw amendment, file number 2020-059ZB, and it's on the subject property 7685 County Road 9 in Creemore in the township of Clearview. So the subject lands are shown here on this map, and they are shown in the hatched out gray and black lines. And again, it is 7685 County Road 9 in Creemore, Township of Clearview, and the lands at the time of the application were Midwest Metals. The existing policy framework, the current township official plan designation is industrial, and the current zoning bylaw categories are restricted industrial, MR-8, hold 1, institutional, IN, hazard land, FP, and hazard land special policy, FPSP. This is a map showing the official plan designation, and the subject lands are outlined in red, and they are shown as industrial. The existing zoning bylaw map, again, the subject lands are outlined in red, and the majority of the lands are currently zoned restricted industrial exception, MR-8, hold 1, and there is a small portion of the subject lands that are actually zoned institutional. Further zoning on the map, this is just showing the overlays of the hazard land FP, which is the blue overlay, and then the purple is called the hazard land special policy, FPSP. The proposal is to zone a portion of the subject lands from institutional IN zone and restricted industrial exception, MR- I'm just going to move my MR-8, hold 1, to restricted industrial exception, MR-8, hold 22. And this zoning will ensure that the entire property is zoned restricted industrial exception, MR-8, hold 22. Further, the application is also needed to recognize existing setbacks and provisions for the existing buildings on the site. In addition, the application will look at adding a hold symbol, hold 22, that will be lifted when a site plan approval has been obtained and any agreements have been entered into with the township. Now into details about the site-specific provisions for this zoning bylaw, and they will be considered under exception 8. In the following tables, there are 2 columns. The one shows what the restricted industrial zone would permit or require, and the second column shows the proposed provision. So this would be what would, if council was to consider approving the bylaw, what the setback would be. So the first is the minimum rear yard setback, and that is 5 meters, except where adjacent to a non-industrial zone boundary, and then the setback should be 15 meters. And what is proposed is that the rear yard setback would be 3 meters. In terms of a minimum interior side yard, the bylaw requires 2 meters, except where adjacent to a non-industrial zone boundary, which would then bump it up to a 15-meter setback. In the proposed bylaw, the proposed interior side yard on the western property line for existing buildings would be 0. And for moving forward, in interior side yard on the west for all other buildings, meaning new buildings, would be 2 meters. And the interior side yard on the eastern property line would be 7.5. The maximum lot coverage in the current restricted industrial zone is 50% when the lands are private or partial services, and it bumps up to 70% when a property is on full municipal services. The bylaw is proposing a 75% lot coverage. In terms of parking spaces, the bylaw does require 28 spaces, but in this case, the proposal is to provide 8 spaces on the site. The number of barrier-free spaces in the bylaw requires 1, and the proposal is to provide 1. And the number of loading spaces in the bylaw requires 2 spaces, and in the proposed bylaw, they are looking to provide 1 space. Now, these are the site-specific provisions continued in terms mostly looking at the primary outdoor storage on the property. And in this case, the bylaw is proposing that there would be no setback from the property lines for outdoor storage. The primary outdoor storage will not be closer to the front property line than the front wall of the primary building, and it will be required to be behind the 2-meter high solid wall or solid fence. The bylaw will require that there is a minimum 2-meter high solid fence around the perimeter of the property. The fence along the front yard setback will be set behind the front wall of the main primary building. Recycling bins, when stacked, will not be higher than the perimeter fence, so the fencing around the property. An industrial use will be permitted within 15 meters to an institutional building, and snow storage in the proposed bylaw will be permitted to be hauled off the site. Further, a metal recycling transfer station will be permitted inside buildings and outdoors behind the required fencing and behind the front wall of the primary building. Landscaping will be satisfied by the minimum 2-meter high fence placed around the perimeter of the site. Development on this property will be permitted to occur on partial or private services, and the driveway on the property will be permitted to be a minimum width of 9 meters and have no more than a maximum width of 36 meters. While this is a bit of a small picture, it is the site plan for the existing property. And what it shows in the hatched out areas is all the existing buildings. So this is an operation that has been operating for some time, and in many cases, the proposed provisions for the zoning have reflected what is existing to date. Notice in circulation. Notice of the subject zoning bylaw amendment has been given in accordance with the Planning Act on December the 18th, 2020. It was done through mailing out of notices and posting a sign on the property. Details of this application and supporting materials have also been made available to the public online and have been circulated to the relevant commenting agencies. To date, we have not received any public comments. And we have received a comment from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. So if there is anyone listening that would like to provide comments to myself, they can do so through email or they can give me a call. This is my contact information. And just to show you where we are in the process, currently we're having a public meeting. Staff will, of course, consider comments received tonight from council and from any public and agencies. Then staff will proceed to make a recommendation report to council. Council will either approve or deny the application, and then there will be an appeal period. If there is no appeal received, then the bylaw will come into force and effect. And that concludes my presentation, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosalind. And I understand that the applicant is present tonight, and so is their agent, Marie LaRue. And I understand, Marie, you wanted to make some comments. Can you take your, I don't know, do you want to take your screen down, Rosalind?
Yes, I certainly can. Does that help?
Yes, thank you so much. I believe, Marie, your client is here tonight, although I don't see them.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am here tonight to represent the Midwest Metals as well as Joan and Donald Gordon. And I'm just wanting to give a little bit of background information on the subject property and the operations on behalf of the owners, Midwest Metals.
Okay, please proceed.
Okay. So in 1991, the Gordons had purchased the property. And in 2003, the metal recycling business began. In 2006, the Gordons had applied for site plan approval. And in 2006, the property was zoned to the existing MR8 to recognize the existing use and to add the H symbol to the zone to have it in a hold until site plan approval was completed. The Gordons have continued to improve the site and the operations to meet the township's requirements for site plan approval and the MOE's approval. Some of the improvements that have taken place is the hard surfacing of the work and the outside storage areas. They have paved and lined the parking area and the entranceway. They've installed the stormwater management system, which filters the drainage before entering into the underground filter beds. They've placed roofing over the work and storage areas. They've installed fencing around the perimeter of the property except for the front yard, and have planted large evergreen trees for screening along both the east and the west lot lines. And they've implemented the operations procedures for handling of all recyclables and the waste materials. The subject property consists of 59.4 meters, which is about 195 feet of frontage, with an overall area of 0.814 hectares, which is approximately 2 acres. There are 4 buildings on the site. The large building at the front is for the office and parts storage. The large building behind that is for the operations and waste storage. The building in the southwest corner is, it houses part of the stormwater facility. And then there is another small building on the west side, and that is just an equipment building for the baler. So then the recycling compound is entirely within the fenced area. So the building on the southeast corner was too close to the east lot line. And so the county's workyard abuts it to the east. And so the Gordons purchased a strip of land off the county's, and it is only 8.5 meters wide by 51.72 meters in length. And that was to rectify the setback issue for that building. So the county's workyard being zoned institutional, the small strip of land was also zoned institutional. And it's that small strip of land that is being rezoned from institutional to the MR8 zoned. So then in order to obtain site plan approval, the entire site must comply with the zoning bylaw. So the zone provision reductions could have been dealt with through a minor variance application. However, it was recommended by township staff, since a zoning amendment was coming in, that the amendment could incorporate all the exceptions as well. So the exceptions are for reductions to setbacks, the number of parking spaces and loading spaces, alters the landscaping requirements and lot coverage, and as well, just a few exceptions to recognize the existing operations and structures on the site. So the proposed zoning will remain in a hold until site plan approval is obtained. The Gordons have submitted already the revised site plan to the township. They have instructed their engineers to complete the final addendums to their reports, which they hope will satisfy all the township's requirements for then a site plan agreement to be completed and then go on to get site plan approval. So the business, the metal recycling transfer station operations has existed in Clearview for over 25 years, which adds to Clearview's economy and provides employment for Clearview residents. The metal recycling operation can be considered an essential use. I mean, where else would all the old vehicles, fridge and stoves and metals go? Hopefully not in someone's back 40 acres or at the end of a unopened road allowance. So the vehicle recycling operations is actually very similar to an automotive repair garage, where parts and liquids are removed from the vehicles, they're properly stored, and then disposed of in accordance with MOE's guidelines. So on behalf of the owners, they would appreciate council's support for the zoning amendment. We would like to thank Roslyn for all her help and support, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. And so the Gordons didn't want to speak tonight, is that correct? Marie?
No, I'm going to try to answer questions on their behalf.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody on council have a question? Any questions? Yes, Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So yeah, I think I've got a handle on it now. And thanks very much once again for the site visit. That was very helpful. I'm just looking at, I think it's page number 11 and under of the public meeting, and it says the proposal talks about the primary outdoor storage, no setback from the property lines, and then it says not closer to the front property line than the front wall of the primary building. So I'm just curious, what's the definition of primary outdoor storage as opposed to, like, is there a secondary outdoor storage, or just wondering what that definition is? And secondly, I'm to take it then that basically that there won't be any outdoor storage put up like on the parking lot there. Is that correct? That's basically what that means. Is that right?
Yeah, so I think Roslyn had her hand up, so we'll let Roslyn answer that question for you.
Thank you, Councillor McKechnie, and through the chair. So your first question is about primary outdoor storage, and you are correct. We do have a sort of a definition for primary outdoor storage, and we also have what we call accessory outdoor storage. So in terms of the way that this operation sort of conducts itself, it lends itself more to the idea of primary outdoor storage, just because it gives, it allows a lot more coverage on the site. And when you think about sorting materials, it may not be that it's covering the site all the time, like 100% of the time. It just depends on the ebb and flow of the business. And so I think it makes more sense to look at primary outdoor storage for this type of operation as opposed to accessory type, because accessory in the bylaw means that it's maybe less coverage. It's maybe not as much volume, I suppose. So, and then in terms of your second question regarding whether the recycling materials would be in front of or in the parking area, you're correct. That is how the bylaw is designed or has been drafted or is proposed to be drafted, is that it wouldn't go outside in front. It would all be, well, you were there on the weekend, you saw the way the site is set up, where there's already a fence sort of behind the main wall of the main building. Does that help answer?
Yeah, it does. So basically, the accessory outdoor storage, are we talking like, would that be more than a garden shed? Would that be like a couple hundred square feet, or what? Just, can you give me an idea on that?
Oh, so sorry, you want to have an example of what accessory outdoor storage is?
Yeah. I mean, you said that, you know, like primary outdoor storage is not the accessory outdoor storage. So basically, I'm just trying to get a, you know, just in my own mind, trying to get an idea of the difference. So is accessory outdoor storage something that would be considered to be a garden shed, so that same size?
No, like it would be more like a different type of use. And I would have to grab my bylaw, just if you wouldn't mind, or maybe Mara has looked it up on the internet. I'm a bit challenged here because I have a smaller screen, but maybe Mara has had a chance to look up on the bylaw what the actual definition is. So.
Go ahead, Mary.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I was just doing that. My recollection of it is that there are different provisions, more strict provisions for secondary storage. So Rosalind's right. It really is more like accessory to a business. For this business, storage of recycled materials is their business to some degree, right? Particularly where you look at the recycling bins, and that they are sorting and putting materials into recycling bins. Those bins would be considered storage of the materials, and it's outdoor storage, it's primary storage. So that's really the difference. And I was just going to my zoning bylaw so I could give you more of a complete answer, but I think that answer will actually, I'm hoping that answer does it for you, because that's really the difference, is that there are different provisions for it being a primary use versus something that is secondary or accessory to use.
Okay, no, that's fine. I guess when in my own mind, I was thinking initially primary versus accessory more or less dealt with the size of the storage facility or unit. But you're talking about more the use, so then that's fine. Yeah, no,
Go ahead, Rosalind, you wanted to respond?
Yeah, sorry, I did just grab my zoning bylaw. And so if you were to look in the zoning bylaw on page 30, section 2.25, outdoor storage, it does.
I was reading that last week.
Oh, you were reading that last week. Okay.
No,
so then you know that under section C, it kind of speaks a little bit to accessory outdoor storage shall not be a size any greater than 20% of the total ground floor area of the primary buildings on the site. So it's giving a bit, like that's just one of the distinctions between accessory outdoor, and then primary outdoor areas shall be sized in accordance with the limitations imposed by the maximum lot coverage on the pertinent zone. So in this case, what we're saying is we'd like to make it 75%.
Right. Okay. That's good. I'm happy with that. That was just had to get it clear in my head, and no, I'm good.
Okay. Any other questions? Did any other members of council have a question? Yes, Councillor Patterson.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say it's nice to see Marie.
Thank you. Nice to see you all too.
And it's really not for Marie, but for her to hear. I appreciate the service that Midwest Metals and the Gordons have provided to the town, and I have no issues with the particular business tonight. the development area adjacent to the site to the west, Roslyn or Mara, what do we anticipate going forward? It might have an effect on our setbacks and that sort of thing if there was something injurious, but what are we planning to do with that? Anything in terms of the OP and zoning? Nothing pops into mind right now. So it sounds like it's staying as a development area.
Who wants to respond to that, Mara or Rosalind? Mara, go ahead, Mara.
Thank you, Your Worship. The property there is designated industrial. So although not currently zoned, if someone came forward with an industrial use that met all of our requirements and they were looking to do an amendment, then it would be another industrial use that presumably will be compatible with Midwest Metals.
So the underlying zoning is industrial?
The official plan designation is industrial. The zoning hasn't yet been given.
So that answers my question. That's good. That seems compatible with.
I think it is.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Lamers.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This zoning bylaw amendment is mainly for the southeast corner, the what's that zoning? The rest
Institution.
of it,
yeah,
the rest of it is already zoned. We're just mainly, this amendment is just for that southeast corner for housekeeping, more or less.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree with you. Yeah, through the chair to councillor or committee member Lamers. Yes, it is basically housekeeping to have that institutional to be the same zone as the rest of the property. And then to pick up the existing setbacks and lot coverages and everything that's on site now.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Going once? Going twice? Okay. This concludes the public meeting with, sorry, does somebody have a hand up? No. Okay. This concludes the public meeting with respect to file number that we had tonight of this evening's agenda. We thank all who provided written comments and for the interest in this matter. All input received with regard to this proposal will be fully considered by staff in their recommendations and by council in their decision with respect to this application. Our report regarding this proposal will be prepared for council, who will make a decision concerning this matter at a future meeting, not tonight. And that brings our public meeting to an end, and I will pass the chair back to his worship. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. And before Mara there's Marie. Hi, Marie. It's nice to see you again.
Thank you.
You know, at one point on my screen, it was kind of neat. I had Mara, Rosalind, and Marie right there. So it's just like the old team again. So it's good to see them all. Well, anyway, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I appreciate you doing a good job there in that meeting, and that was good. All right, Council, we'll move on our agenda. Item number 12 is Community Services CS 058-2020, the Committee of Adjustment for December the 9th. Seems so long ago. Recommendation, be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive CS 058-2020, Committee of Adjustment for December the 9th, 2020, report for information. Can I have a mover and seconder on the motion, please? Let me see here, Deputy, or where are we? Councillor Deneen and Councillor Broderick. Thank you very much, councillors. All right, is there any questions? I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries. Committee of Adjustment, thank you. CS 003-2021 is exempt part lot control for estates of Clearview Nottawasaga Station, Phase 1, Block 73. Seems like we've talked about this one before. I see Nick has joined us. So I'll read the motion, look for a mover and seconder. Recommendation, be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, receive CS 003-2021, exempt part lot control for the estates of Clearview, Nottawasaga Station, Phase 1, Block 73, report for information. And item 2, pass a bylaw to exempt part lot control on the lands described as Block 73, Plan 51M1173, being parts 1, 2, and 3 on a reference plan 51R 42743, Township of Clearview, and in the County of Simcoe. Mover and seconder to get it on the floor. That would be Councillor Walker, Councillor Broderick. Thank you very much. Mara, I see Nick has joined us. Happy New Year to you, Nick. Haven't seen you in a while. Welcome aboard. Nick, would you like to speak to the report?
Well, hopefully my report is pretty straightforward, but I know you guys probably recall. So in late 2020, we recently passed a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone a portion of the land that was previously zoned as stormwater management to the RS3-4 zone to reflect the same zoning as the rest of the property. And then basically this is the report coming back to now allow for those lands to be severed into 3 individual single attached lots now that the zoning has gone through. So that's the report. So hopefully my report is straightforward, but if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
That's all right. That's why I mentioned early that we had talked about this land in the past. So I'm glad you were here. Members of council, is there anybody have any questions of our staff about this report and this change to this property? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, staff. We've got a report in front of you. We've got a mover and seconder. I'm prepared to call a motion. All those in favor? And the motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nick. Thank you. Mara. Moving on to Finance Department. This is always exciting to talk about this at our first meeting of the year. Taxes, interim tax bylaw. Okay. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive the 2021 interim tax bylaw report for information. And item 2, approve the 2021 interim tax bylaw 21-01 from our legislative clerk's department. Okay, a mover and seconder on the interim tax bylaw, and then I'm sure Kelly would like to speak. Mr. Broderick, Mr. Lamers. Thank you, gentlemen. Kelly, nice to see you. Happy New Year. Welcome back to our council meeting. Kelly, do you want to give us a quick outline on what the interim tax bylaw does?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, this is our standard bylaw that comes once a year, and it sets out the 50% of the prior year taxes, so the tax collector can send out the interim bills. It also sets out the interim tax due dates. So for 2021, we have March 25th and June 24th. The only difference with this bylaw is it does include the stipulation that penalty and interest are still not being charged due to the COVID emergency.
Correct. All right, I was going to mention that. I'm glad you mentioned it because that's true. That during this emergency, as directed, we are not charging any interest at this time for any late charges. So your tax rate and your tax bill is your tax rate and your tax bill. That's it. All right. Any members of council with any questions for Kelly or members of our staff on this important document? Council, seeing none. Thank you, Kelly, our treasurer, for joining us. Council, we've got a motion. You've got a mover and seconder. I'm ready to call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. Also from the Finance Department and also from our deputy clerk, the community assistance grants. So for 2021, recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive LS 001 2021, the 2021 Community Assistance Grants Report for information, and that the 2021 Community Assistance Grants be approved as presented. I'll ask for a mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Leashman. Thank you very much. If I may, can I go right to Brenda? Brenda, you worked with our committee to put together a very good report. Brenda, would you like to speak to this, or is there anything you'd like to add?
I don't think there's anything I need to add. There certainly were some organizations that did not supply an application for us this year. That may come later on during the year, but some of the applications we received, the amounts were lower than what they have been in the past, perhaps because some of the functions that they have been doing have been eliminated, or at least not to the full extent of what they have been doing. So this is what we have so far for this year. I'm not sure perhaps if Councillor Leishman or Deputy Mayor Burton have any other comments that they wanted to make during our review process as well. They may have some comments.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Clerk. I was going to go to the councillor or the Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor is first. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you. The only thing I want to say is a tremendous job that our deputy clerk does. because she takes all the applications, organizes them, presents them to us, and she gets all the background information on them. So it makes making the decision making quite a bit easier. So thank you to Brenda for doing such a great job. Thanks.
Outstanding. I couldn't agree more. Thank you. Councillor Leishman, do you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation about the report?
No, but I'd like to bring your attention to the DARE program, Huronia West.
Thank
They
you.
did not give in an application, but we got that, I think it was last week or the week before. Anyway, and we did, at least I discussed it with Brenda. I'm not sure the deputy mayor was available at the time, but we decided to go ahead with this and put it in the community grants program. I know the DARE program is quite a good program and it's been going for a long time. I remember my girls taking it long ago. So anyway, and I'd also like to support what Deputy Mayor said about Brenda. She's been wonderful, just wonderful. Thank you.
Outstanding.
And yes, I was aware of the DARE and did support it as well.
All right, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Actually, I was going to speak about the DARE program. I'm glad you brought it up. I had a conversation with Acting Inspector Terry Ward, and he brought this forward. I advised him to send it in as a written request, which I believe he did, and I'm glad that the process worked to continue to support the DARE program, as they intend at Huronia West to bring that program back and to really support it this year. I have received word that the town of Wasaga Beach is supporting it, as well as the township of Springwater. And so we're the three municipalities that are all supportive of the Huronia West OPP. So I'm really glad that that's supportive in there. And thank you for putting it in there. So hopefully it'll pass. Further to that, I just want to add a little tidbit of information that Acting Inspector Ward advised me further that he has been seconded to work at another location. So we are losing Terry Ward as our detachment commander. And he's going to Dufferin County. And beginning today, a gentleman by the name of Andy, his name just escapes me right now, Acting Inspector Andrew Hicks, I think his name is that correct? He has joined us. So I look forward to meeting him shortly, actually. I'm hoping to have a meeting with him on Thursday, and we'll have an opportunity to meet and keep our relationship positive with our colleagues at the OPP. So that's a little update on that. Okay, members of council, any questions on the report? All right, well, I want to thank Brenda and thank our committee, which is, of course, the Leishman and Burton, who work on this every year. Thank you for that. Members of council, we've got a mover and seconder on the floor. I've asked if you're ready. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. Good work, people. All right, moving to bylaws. Here we go. Item 21-1. Bylaw 21-1. The interim tax bylaw recommendation be it resolved that bylaw number 21-01, being the 2021 interim tax bylaw, be presented over the first, second, and third time and finally passed on the 11th day of January 2021. Can I have a mover and seconder on the interim tax bylaw? Mr. Lamers, Councillor Deneen. Thank you for that. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And the bylaw carries. Thank you. Bylaw number 21-02 to appoint a building inspector. Before I read the bylaw, I'd ask if Scott could join us again just to speak briefly about this. We have building inspectors in our township, and by adding an additional bylaw inspector, Scott, can you outline some of the work that that person will be doing for us?
Yes, Your Worship. So this is a formality in terms of with our new position with Miranda Murray that came on to the building department back in early October. While her primary role is plans review, she still performs the function of a building inspector. As part of Miranda's role, we've had her in the field as limited as that has been at this point for training, and she is suitably qualified. The long-term role of the plans review position was that while one of the inspectors was off on holidays, then they could fill in that position and be in the field. So their primary role is not to be in the field, but they would certainly fill in as necessary. And given the current situation with COVID, it's important that we have Miranda appointed as building inspector in the event that one of the inspectors has to self-isolate or becomes ill. Then we also have a resource that we can use in the field as well in terms of inspections. And Miranda comes to us very qualified and has the necessary qualifications for being in the field.
All right, thank you very much, Scott, for that update. And I have welcomed Miranda to the team here and had a brief conversation with her. So I'm really glad that she's has joined us, and she does bring with her some great qualifications. So council, I'll read the, thank you, Scott. I will read the motion or the bylaw, and I'll ask for mover and seconder. Recommendation be it resolved, the bylaw number 21-02 being a bylaw to appoint a bylaw inspector be presented and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on the 11th day of January 2021. Can I get a mover and seconder on the motion? That'll be Leashman and Broderick. Leashman and Broderick, thank you very much. Council, you've heard the bylaw. I'm prepared to call a motion. All those in favor? And the bylaw carries. Thank you very much. Congratulations to Miranda Murray. Not to be confused with Amanda Murray. We have a Miranda and an Amanda who work here. So keep that in mind. Thank you. 21-03, exempt land from part lot control provisions for the Planning Act. Recommendation be it resolved. Bylaw number 21-03 being a bylaw to exempt lands, the estates of Clearview Incorporated from part lot control provisions, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, finally passed on the 11th day of January 2021. Can I have a mover and seconder on the motion? That'll be Mr. Burton, Deputy Mayor Burton, and Councillor Lamers. Deputy Mayor Burton, Councillor Lamers. Council, you've seen the bylaw. All those in favor? And those opposed? And the bylaw carries. Thank you. Okay, notices of motion or new business. We have nothing on our agenda at this time for item number 13. Council, I'm prepared to read item number 14, our bylaw to confirm the proceedings of our council meeting. Recommendation be it resolved, bylaw number 21-05, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the January 11, 2021 council meeting, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally pass on this 11th day of January 2021. Can I have a mover and seconder on the motion, please? Where are we at? Councillor Leashman, Councillor Broderick. Council, you've heard the bylaw. All those in favor? And the bylaw carries. Before I do our motion to adjourn, thank you, Councillor Walker. Before I do our motion to adjourn, just want to mention council will be meeting again as a council and workshop session, which is on Wednesday, 12 noon, I believe it is. I think it's at 12 noon. It's not 12:30, 12 noon. For Wednesday. That is again a budget workshop session where we will be making receiving a final report from our treasury, and council will debate that, and then we'll move from workshop into council session to pass a resolution. So I just want to declare that's the next time our council is meeting. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, members of council, notice or motion to adjourn. I'm looking at you, Councillor McKechnie. Recommendation be resolved that council meeting be adjourned at 7:27 p.m. Moved by Councillor McKechnie, seconded by Councillor Deneen. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Members of council, members of the public, and staff, I appreciate you joining us here at council. I implore you to continue to be safe out there and practice the social distancing. Gatherings are really just the most difficult thing, and we just can't do them right now.